You are listening to Book Clips, a podcast where authors and narrators expose you to excerpts from different books. You can find the show and more by searching for The Lesbian Talk Show on iTunes, Podbean or Stitcher.
Hi, I'm A.L. Brooks, and I'm going to be doing a reading from Chapter 1 of my second novel, Dark Horse. It's set in Australia, and it's a family drama with a romance on the side. The main character is Sadie, who was kicked out of her Ballarat home by her parents for a crime she didn't commit when she was 17, and she's been living with her grandmother in Sydney ever since. She's now 29 and has made a new life for herself there, with no further contact with the rest of her family. Me and Tash are moving in together. Nicole's face shone with excitement. Sadie was stunned. Out of nowhere, a blanket of hurt and misery swamped her. She knew it was childish, but once her old insecurities reared their ugly heads, she couldn't shake them off. When? Sadie's heartbeat pounded in her ears. Her hands shook, and she didn't know if it was from anxiety or anger. Nicole tilted her head. Whenever we can find a place we both like. Nicole's voice grew quieter. Tash will sell her place, and I'll give notice on the house share. Then we'll put our savings together and get a great big grown-up mortgage. She grinned, but it faded quickly at the lack of response from Sadie. Somewhere, deep in the recesses of her mind, Sadie knew she should be pleased for Nicole and Tash. They were her friends. They'd been seeing each other for nearly 3 years, and this was it, the real deal. And that meant living together. It made perfect sense. But somehow, Nicole's excited words unleashed a torrent of repressed memories and old anger. The thudding in her ears got louder, and her stomach twisted in knots. Nicole was leaving her. Nicole was going off to find a life for herself, a life that didn't include her. It was irrational, and not too far from the surface of her brain, Sadie knew that, but she couldn't stop herself from overreacting. She shuffled in her seat, fighting the urge to run. Sades? Nicole reached out a hand and tried to touch Sadie's arm, but she flinched away. Sades, this doesn't change anything. You know that, right? Sadie stared at her, willing her mouth to open and the right words to come out, but they wouldn't appear. Of course it changed things. It changed everything. Nicole was her best friend, her rock. How could she just leave? Babe, I know what is going through your mind right now, but I swear to you, nothing changes. We'll still be hanging out together just as much as we always have. I will still be ragging on you via text message night and day. You don't get rid of me that easily, remember? Nicole's tone was earnest and pleading, but Sadie's mind had gone into freefall, and she couldn't, or didn't want to, stop it. Tears formed, stinging her tired eyes. Nicole reached across the short distance between their chairs, but Sadie brushed her off and stood up. Sadie, this doesn't change a thing. Nicole stood too and planted herself squarely in front of her, hands on her hips. Not a thing, you hear me? Tash knows how important you are to me, yeah? Christ, the 3 of us have been hanging out ever since I started seeing her, so just because I'm moving in with her doesn't mean that stops, right? She grabbed Sadie's chin before Sadie could move out of the way, and pulled her round to look her straight in the eyes. I love you, you stupid lump. Always. Never forget that. Never. Her eyes blazed, and Sadie wanted so badly to believe her. And yet... Whatever it was Sadie's mind couldn't get past, it squelched all rational thought. She pulled sharply away, waving a derisive hand between them as if swatting a fly. Without a word, not trusting herself to speak with so much fear and anger eating her up, she stomped away. Sadie, please! She heard Nicole's plea but refused to turn back. It was a lonely walk home in that balmy evening air. When she quietly let herself into her home, she had no recollection of which route she'd walked, or any idea what time it was. She went straight to her room and threw herself onto the bed, acutely embarrassed at her immature response to Nicole's news. But, simmering under the surface, there was still the anger, the fear. Nicole had been there for Sadie through the best and the worst, and Sadie couldn't imagine life without her. She tried to sleep, but it was fitful. She tossed and turned in and out of dreams until, eventually, as the sun began to rise and a gentle light seeped under the blinds at her window, she gave up. Staring at the ceiling, she sighed. Thinking time was required, and that could only mean one thing. She pulled on her clothes and reached for the keys to her Harley. Picking up her phone, she saw that Nicole had texted her about 20 times. each message saying essentially the same thing. Nothing changes. I still love you. You're still my bestie. The ride out to Turumeta Beach helped. Time on her beloved Harley always did. At first she rode too fast, as her anger and embarrassment about her actions the night before had her gripping the bike's controls way too tightly. Gradually, the empty roads, the breeze flowing over her body, and the rising sun lighting her way eased her mood. The thrum of the bike beneath her as it ate up the road gave her a satisfying buzz, despite the gloom that still pervaded her mind. The beach was small but beautiful, enclosed by 2 headlands that broke the incoming waves. She found a spot on one of the vegetated hummocks at the back of the sand and watched the waves smash against the rocks. They didn't boom like big surf, but somehow whatever noise they did generate always helped ease her mood. The rhythmic flow and the shush of the water as it scurried back down the beach was almost hypnotic in its effect. Sadie had never seen the ocean until she was 17 and first arrived in Manly. It was love at first sight. Something about the endless power of it had touched her deep inside and never let go. When she needed to think, the ocean always called her. She sat for a while with an empty mind and let the rapidly warming sun and the gentle ocean breeze soothe her. Only then did she let her thoughts run and force herself to face up to what had brought her there in the first place. Nicole's news shouldn't have sent her over the edge like that. She had such a good life, and she made herself mentally tick off all that she had in that life to be thankful for. A fantastic friend in Nicole, and by extension, Tash. An amazing home that she shared with her equally amazing grandmother. A great job that she loved and was good at. Why would she think for 1 minute that Nicole wanting to move in with Tash threatened any of that? Stretching out her legs in front of her, she shifted her ass on the sandy hummock. She knew where her insecurity came from, but she also knew that, where Nicole was concerned, it wasn't justified. She cringed with embarrassment at how pathetic she'd been the night before. She was more than this, stronger than this. The overwhelming need to make things right had her reaching for her phone. She tapped out the message quickly, her brain already formulating the plan for what to do next. Sorry, I'm an idiot. We'll see you soon. Love you. She stood up and brushed the sand off her jeans. She knew what she needed to do. Go to Nicole's place and apologise, wholeheartedly. For all the times that Nicole had been there for her in the last 12 years, this was a shitty way to repay her. Sadie should be hugging her, congratulating her, and being excited for her. Nicole was the first of her friends to make this big move, the first of them to find the one and attempt the settling down thing. Not that Sadie ever thought there was much hope of that for herself. She could see what Nicole and Tash had, and deep down, she knew she wanted it. She just had no idea how to get it, no idea how to let someone get that close. As she climbed back up the steep steps from the beach to the road, she smiled. While an apology was definitely due, she knew Nicole would not let her grovel. There might be some arm slapping and maybe a bit of shouting, but they'd be right. They always were. I'm A.L. Brooks, doing a reading from Dark Horse.
This was an episode of Book Clips. Check out the show notes for more on this book. And it would be great if you would rate the show and subscribe to the Lesbian Talk Show podcast channel for more woman-centered content. If you are an author of lesbian fiction, then send us your reading. You can find out how on the lesbiantalkshow.com/reading.